Welcome back to OnChain Revolution. My name is Yagobi, and I am the host of this show. And we have a lot to get into today. Obviously, the markets are crashing, and it's not just Bitcoin. It's gold, the S&P, it's everything, right? And we're going to actually had to change the title of the show, I want to say 3 times. I had to quickly change the thumbnails because of these huge movements that have been happening across the markets. And we're going to get deep into that and try to figure out what's happening. I've been researching on X and haven't found a single answer, but a lot of speculative things I did find on there with China, India, and U.S. relations. But the big one is, China and the United States in their relationship and what that looks like in the future, right? But before we get into anything today, guys, I'm going to ask you guys to help me out and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Hit that like for me because it helps a ton. Also, on the X side, please follow our X handle at OnChain Rev. And if you would do me a favor as well, follow me at YagoBverse as I restarted my X account there. But yeah, so getting back to the markets, it is looking like a big bloodbath, right? And just when you thought the gold bugs and precious metal bugs were safe, if you were one of those, it's also crashing. And gold lost, I think, a little over $3 trillion in its market cap this morning. Some people said more than that. Some people quoted that it lost the full market cap of NVIDIA, but I don't think it quite reached there yet. But we're looking at gold right now. Let me actually pull up my screen. And also make sure you guys drop your comments. I've seen your comments, Jason Seekar, Glasshopper, and Superfan. Welcome back to the show. Drop your comments in the chat and I will get to them, I promise you. But let's take a look at the markets right now. It is a crazy bloodbath. And what's causing it, right? That's what everybody is trying to figure out. And if you see here, you can see this gold chart here on the daily. Man, I mean, this huge daily candle just completely erased everything that it really got up to earlier today. And then it wicked down. So there is a little bit of a rebound happening right now. But, people have been talking, where is the local top for gold? Where is that going to be? And I believe Mogar in the community here said 6,500. And if you were watching the show yesterday, I said, that seems a little high to me. But I will admit I got lucky. I don't think I was expecting this today, the very next day. But if you look here at these other markets as well, I mean, look at the S&P. It's down 1.5 points today. The NASDAQ down 2.2%. And the Russell down 1%, which is a little shocking that the Russell's only down 1%, considering it's more of a risk-on market, right? And then you go down to some of the big stocks in the market as well. Apple down only 0.4%, so better compared to Tesla, Netflix, and then NVIDIA as well. I got to add NVIDIA in here, but you can see Bitcoin pulling back 5 points. So, initially I was going to get into Bitcoin finding, and I still will, because I think we're going to find our footing across the board here for the most part. Maybe gold will take a little bit more of a hit because it ran up so strongly. But I do believe the crypto market does find its footing, but that's something that we're probably going to have to look towards maybe next week, right? But you can see here, Bitcoin pulling back 5 points, Ethereum pulling back 6.5 points. So if you guys were in any alt markets or anything like that, or altcoins, they're probably going to pull back pretty aggressively here, guys. And then you get to gold being pulled back 3.5%, which is huge for gold. And then silver as well. I mean, take a look at silver. Silver, is sitting at 111. That was after reaching 122. And a lot of people have been playing silver because they felt like gold was too expensive. And so, across the board, all markets are just getting absolutely wrecked, right? And what's the reason for it? It can't be the Fed FOMC meeting yesterday. Yeah, I don't think that had too much to do with it, because, that would be, in my opinion, a pretty delayed reaction to that, right? So, the one thing that I have been seeing on X and Twitter, and if you guys have any ideas of what could have caused this, global pretty much dump across all markets, put it in the chat. But on X, I'm seeing things about how the United States is trying to short gold and China's trying to build it up. And we know that there is some geopolitical tensions across the board. And we got Arita TV saying trade deficit shock. Yeah, that could be it for sure. There's a lot of things that have happened over the last 2 weeks that could have kind of, I guess, been bubbling up to this type of event. The Davos event was, the United States wasn't really received very well, right? Trump's speeches there weren't received very well. And so is this a kind of across the board, the stock market from the US? Bitcoin has been a big focus for the United States. But then you kind of question yourself and you say, what about gold? Gold and precious metals were supposed to be the hedge. And then you can even scratch your head even more and say, well, what's going on with the Dixie here? Because you see the dollar actually showing strength on the daily. And so people are selling their assets and the Dixie's going up. And so you almost wonder, like, what is creating all of this havoc, right? And so we will keep our eye and pulse on the overall markets, gold, of course, Bitcoin, all that great stuff. But one of the things that we are going to get into is talk a little bit about the Fed decision yesterday and how they decided to pause rates and what that looks like. Once things settle down, of course, and what does that look like for Bitcoin in the long term, right? Or midterm, I should say. But yeah, just taking a look at Bitcoin right now, again, all markets are bleeding out. So no shocker here that this daily candle looks horrible. But let's go ahead and bring up that kind of main topic I wanted to hit on. And we're also going to hit on some other stuff as well, right? So we're going to hit on the Fed that I just mentioned, their decision, what happened the last time the Fed decided to pause rates, and how Bitcoin reacted to that, which was the end of July. We're going to get into, the weird interaction between the Dixie and Bitcoin as well, where, before today, the Dixie was really downtrending and Bitcoin hasn't been really aggressive to the upside. And we've seen that in multiple cycles, right? Multiple previous cycles. And there's just been a little, I guess, a disconnect between the correlation between the two. And we can talk a little bit about why that could be the case there. We're going to hit on XRP as they have, more millionaire wallets, actually, that's continually ramping up. So for all you crazy XRP cult community people out there, we'll hit on that a little bit here. And then we're going to get into some fun stuff with the Bitcoin ecosystem down the line. We're going to hit on the oil news, how the main company that created alkanes is starting to wind down, and how that's not necessarily, an end to alkanes, right? They've definitely left the door open for the community to continually build. And I think that's an awesome thing. We'll dive into that. And also this funny war that's happening between Leonidas, which is the main leader of the dog community, the Bitcoin runes, the most popular Bitcoin runes in the Bitcoin rune ecosystem, really going to war with CZ, and Binance kind of noticing and fighting back here a little bit. Is that good for dog? We'll dive into that. Also, we'll hit on the, I'm starting to do a ordinals. I'm going to try to do ordinals highlight of the day for collection. We're going to hit on the Bitcoin frogs today and what I think about the future of them. And then also hit on a new ordinal mint, which looks like it started about 10 minutes ago, called the Ordinal Brokies. So you guys can definitely research that on X and definitely do your own research. So, you learn more about what the risks are, because there's risks to, every part of the space. And then finally, we'll hit on the base AI autonomous network that continually grows, and this X402 environment and ecosystem and maybe economy that is starting to grow. But yeah, we're going to get back into Bitcoin and how it reacted to the last Fed pause in July. But let's check out some comments. It looks like some people came through. We got Dr. Dre Boot with the love there. love back to you. We got super fans saying GM. It's been a minute. It has, brother. And I did send you a DM, so please check that and we can connect for sure and get you on the show again, possibly. And then Holy Dumping by Grasshopper. Yes, it is a pretty crazy dump right now. And then Jason Sinkar, XCN. I got it right this time. I think I said XDC yesterday. So appreciate all the comments. Keep them coming in, guys. But let's take a look here at BTC. And the last time that the Fed actually paused rates, which was July 30th, 2025. Get a drink of water. All right. So as you can see here on the 30th of July in 2025, this is the last time the Fed paused rates. Now, I do like to use historical data. As many of you know, I do have a digital marketing background of over 10 years working in that world. And so analytics is always a huge part of how we forecast and how we project, right? And unfortunately, in 2025, that hasn't been our friend for, at least the alt market, right? Bitcoin, but the alt market for sure. But hey, things have to eventually come back around for analytics to start kicking in, because that's just how it works. Analytics over time is proven to be a great tool for forecasting. And sometimes you get thrown off because of market conditions or just major changes in infrastructure. And that's what I believe happened in 2025. But now we're going into this next year, 2026. And I think we can maybe start to use a little bit of that. In this case, it also is more about we were kind of already in this new transition, or at least in the middle of it in 2025. So we're looking here, July 30th, right, when the Fed meeting actually happened, and Bitcoin didn't really respond too well. And this is, mind you, after multiple pauses that happened before this. This was heading into the actual second round of rate cuts that we started experiencing, and that happened in September. But so right afterwards, though, you saw kind of this breakdown of Bitcoin in price. We were sitting at like 119, and the next 4 days, it ended up kind of bottoming here at 111. And this was on Saturday. So you're going from Wednesday to Saturday, which was Thursday, Friday, 3 days, right? We're looking at 3 pretty aggressive days to the downside. And it found that support level here. And then you saw Bitcoin start to rise up, right? And people might say, well, that was just the natural pendulum swing. But remember that, like, if that's the case, then the pause didn't have too much to really, bring the price down. It was more of a natural kind of pullback. But we did experience that pull up the last couple of days with Bitcoin. So it does kind of match that, right? And then you see the weekly close candle, right? Or for that day, at least on that Sunday, that's whenever the uptrend started for Bitcoin. And then so you saw that following week really have this uptrend that lasted from the 3rd of August to the 14th. So you're looking at about 11 days of uptrend that happened after the Fed decided to pause rates. So, you went back down, you found the support here at, what is this, 112, and ended up kind of getting to that 124. So, you fast forward to where we are today, and obviously today is going to be, tricky, because we got to figure out, where does Bitcoin stop to bleed? And, we wicked down here at 84.2, pretty much 84.2. And if we do find our footing here, and, we say, okay, this market crash is going to calm down. Even if it doesn't, though, we be patient and we figure out, when does that actually start to calm down and start to find its uptrend. That's the most important thing. So today's Thursday, one day after the pause decision. I think that we're going to have to probably wait until the weekly close to see when possibly we can find, when we find the bottom area. I was initially thinking, that we could see something like 85, 86, and then that 87 would be more of the support level. But with today happening, like the events today, I'm definitely going to be more on the cautious side, waiting for this actually to stop bleeding. And so that's what I'm going to be looking for, right? And then you go all the way until Sunday, and we'll see what happens if there is a uptrend that starts. And if not, then I think we got to be a little bit concerned of, where does Bitcoin find its footing at, right? Another thing that's very similar to the previous decision was it happened at the end of the month, right? So if you go back to at the end of July, that rise up didn't happen until the beginning of August, and that's where we are, to end this month, right? We ended it with the rate cut, and then we're going into the beginning of next month. So, I think if we, stop bleeding here and today's crash really starts to calm down and we find our way to kind of, rebalance, and then at the end of Sunday, we started to see a little bit of strength, we could see a positive uptrend starting next week. Now, I know many of you guys are probably like, what are you talking about? Okay, so there we go. Courtney Johnson says, bottom not until shutdown is over. So I am assuming that is what was announced, the government shutdown. Is that what you mean, Courtney? That there was a government shutdown announced today, which could be what, yeah. What is happening? Government shutdown, paid leave for everybody. Yeah, so I don't have a confirmation that I see just yet, but if that's the case, that was the one thing I hit on yesterday that I was concerned about. I said, a government shutdown could definitely, okay, so Courtney's following up here and says, yes, government shutdown is coming by Saturday. So yeah, we did see that on Polymarket as well, right? We saw the probability go to like 75%, I think it was, right? I think yesterday. And so maybe that's what people are also counting into this, because that would be pretty detrimental. But if, let's say it's confirmed Saturday, the government shutdown, I don't think that this administration is going to allow a prolonged government shutdown because they saw what happened at the end of last year. And that was really detrimental to the markets, right? But, if there is a shutdown and it does happen, then this is something that could really put, and if it's not resolved by, I would say, even the middle or end of next week, we could see just rocky times for February heading into the middle and towards the end of the month, which, we talked about potentially, with the global liquidity continually going up. And, the Russell, surprisingly today, or at least when I looked at it, it's not getting hit. You can see here as bad as the S&P and NASDAQ. So if the global liquidity continually goes up and the NASDAQ the Russell continually goes up, we could still see that scenario play out if they get the shutdown resolved by the middle, I'll say at least 2 weeks from here. 2 weeks from here. And it would be perfect timing for a rebound as well. But I appreciate that info, Courtney. Keep dropping them comments in the chat. Great to have you back, brother. I feel like we haven't really seen too much of you in the chat. So definitely love your insight. All of you guys love your insight there. But let's get back to Bitcoin here. Honestly, I feel like the daily, the crypto price action today is going to be tough, really, right? If you think about it, I mean, we're looking at this hour chart here, and it's all bets are off right now to be able to try to figure out what is going to happen in terms of a rebound, right? Until this MACD stops, showing that it wants to bleed out continuously. We really don't have any idea. Now, we have been in this strong sell pressure session since Wednesday, right? So that's not long ago. You're talking about yesterday at 12, but that was after kind of setting everybody up to get into these longs, and it played out perfectly, like I mentioned too. I said, that we would see, the price kind of rise up and show strength for Bitcoin heading into the rate cut decision. And then they're going to play games and have that volatility. The one thing that I didn't expect was to show as much strength until today as it did yesterday. And I say strength as in it didn't dump super hard for the second half of yesterday. Obviously, there was a downtrend that did happen, right? Like we did go from, I think it was like 89 around there from before the Fed meeting to 87, but it went sideways. And then obviously today is a completely different story. And so we got to really wait and see, what happens across the board, right? I mean, gold is starting to rebound a little bit here, as you can see, so does Bitcoin rebound with gold? And does the dollar as well, does the Dixie stop going up? So those are three things that I'm looking at right now. And once that happens, we can get way more of a clear view on what Bitcoin's going to do, because until we actually have evidence that this kind of bleed out has stopped, it's going to be really, really hard to project what is going to happen heading into the weekend with Bitcoin's price action. And looking here on the 4 hour, this is the same situation. Even if you are zooming out, you're still going to get kind of skewed data here, because this is pulling that. Now I am seeing, it seems like someone's put like the tourniquet a little bit on Bitcoin, just bleeding out. So hoping that this is kind of where support can really come in and show some strength. But this is just very, very little amount of time to feel confident about that. With that said, if this does finish out, right, we did just get out of this buy pressure session too. So, this can just roll into it swinging back down. And then once it's ready, we could see a strong push up eventually. But again, that we need to get through today and actually get that, because it's really volatile. So if you're out there, trying to figure things out, like how you should, take a position or anything like that, I would 100,000% just be on the sidelines waiting for, signs that we are out of this bleed out, because it's not quite there yet. I don't think it's there yet at all. We are seeing a little bit of a stoppage here in terms of bleeding down, but not anything that would give me any confidence to re-enter any type of leverage position, and even spot. Like if you want to get in a very good opportunity situation with your spot position, might want to wait a little bit more as well. But as they say, with Bitcoin, it's never really a horrible time to buy it spot wise. Yeah, so that's where we are on the 4 hour too, guys. We're just waiting, and just when I thought maybe it would stop, we're going down more, right? So and then you look here on the daily as well, and the daily is just has this extension out here from the markets crashing as well. Oh man. All right, so let's get into some other topics here, some news topics to kind of go over, and then we'll obviously keep looking at price action, right, and making sure that there isn't anything super crazy happening here. All right, let's take a look here. So we already hit that, the market cap. Okay, so this is something that I have been taking a look at a little bit here, right? This is it right here. All right, so the market cap of tokenized U.S. Treasuries has surpassed $10 billion. Now, that was after it had dipped back down here a little bit, kind of Q4, and then now we have passed back over 10 billion. So it's not like the first time that we did it, but it's interesting because you've seen this like kind of just extremely strong uptrend going back to the summer of 2024. So they knew this was coming, right? You're talking about the BlackRocks, you're talking about the institutions that have been putting treasuries on chain. And so why is that a good thing? It's a good thing because we're having more liquidity on chain, and it's also going to bring some solid yield earning opportunities to people that want that, right? And at the end of the day, I know we have a lot of DeFi type of people on this channel and a part of this community, and I get that. But, as time goes on and our space becomes more and more mainstream, you have to realize that institutions are going to continually bring money on chain, which is, I think, a good thing, of course, but also they're going to look for products that they can make money off of, right? And you know, having RWA products is definitely one of those things. And so why does this matter, right? Why does it matter? Because a lot of people are going to look at this as like risk-free yield opportunities. And finally, like, people can go on chain that are from the TradFi side of the world, right? And not super confident with how to use the technology like most of us are with MetaMask and these things. They'll be pretty much, you know, guided on how to do things, right? If you think about who's winning in this RWA world, it's actually a mixture of a little bit of the people that are from our world of, you know, the DeFi world and kind of staking and stable coins and stuff. So you have Circle, they have the USYC and BlackRock's BUIDL, BUIDL, and then Ondo also has their USDY. And then you have Franklin Templeton with Benji as well. So, you know, you're talking about, you know, like, we're talking about billions of dollars, right? So you got 1.7 billions of dollars in TVL for BUIDL, about 1.7 with USDY, 1.2 with Benji. So, you know, that's a lot of value that is coming on chain, and they're not keeping it just on Ethereum, right? They're also adding it to other DeFi platforms, products, you know, L2s, alt layer ones as well, not just Ethereum. You know, they're basically, you know, BlackRock has spread the BUIDL product about $2 billion across Aptos, BSC, so Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, of course, I mentioned them, Solana, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon as well. So, I mean, those chains need TVL, and this is something that's definitely going to help with that. So I think that, you know, this is a net positive for sure for the space. Yeah, I'm not super crazy about, you know, some of the names, which I know that you guys aren't as well. What is up, myself? Missed you yesterday. He said 3 days left until the weekly candle closes. I'm hoping it plots an 11th candle above that 100 EMA. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Let's actually do that right now. I love your insight, man. So keep it coming. So let's see what happens here. And let's get that EMA here, the 100 EMA indicator, and see if we can pull this up. Man, I hate whenever they don't do it this way. I think the EMA, give me 1 second. 2550. Okay, so it's the third one here. Let me remove that as well. All right, so I think myself here is talking about this threshold right here, right? So, you know, getting above here is definitely going to show, you know, some resilience with Bitcoin. The only problem I see with that is, you know, the fact that if we do get this government shutdown happening on Saturday, man, I don't know if we're going to get a good reaction, right, for Bitcoin. I don't think we will, and so it might have to wait until the next week, possibly whenever, if the administration resolves that situation. Because as I mentioned earlier, I can't imagine this administration being okay with having a government shutdown for too long, knowing how detrimental to the markets it was towards the end of last year, right? And this being a midterm year, you know, voting year, right, election year, they need all the help they can get at this point. And who knows, maybe they feel like it's a lost cause. I don't think that they feel that way. I feel like, you know, the powers to be, Elon Musk, you know, Trump, of course, and some of the people that won this past election, I think they have some cards up their sleeve for the midterms, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully this does bounce back above that EMA, and then we can see Bitcoin showing some strength again there. But I appreciate that myself and all your insight, as it is very, very valuable to me, and want those comments to keep coming for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Dixie here. Let me make sure I can find my thing here. Okay, cool. So, people have been scratching their head asking themselves, why has the Dixie been in decline and Bitcoin is not pumping, right? Well, CoinDesk says there's a reason for that. Gold and other hard assets are rallying on dollar weakness, but Bitcoin is lagging as markets continue to treat it as a liquidity sensitive risk asset. So you kind of get down into the article right here, right, and a little bit deeper, and you say the weaker dollar is failing to spur Bitcoin's usual rally. And JP Morgan Private Bank explains, I don't know if I want to trust JP Morgan too much here, explains the unexpected behavior as a window into the nature of the U.S. currency's decline. The dollar index, which measures the greenback against a basket of peers, has dropped 10% in the past year. Bitcoin, which historically gains during periods of dollar weakness, lost 13% in the same period. CoinDesk data shows here, it says the CoinDesk 20 index, a measure of the largest digital assets, fell 28%. So this is where they get to the meat and potatoes. It says the difference this time is that the dollar is being driven by short-term flows and sentiment rather than a shift in growth or monetary policy expectations, with U.S. rate differentials still moving in the dollar's favor, according to strategists at the bank. It's crucial to note that the recent dollar slide isn't about shifts in growth or monetary policy expectations. It says, so basically, what I got from that is that, a lot of this kind of changing of the way that the globalism has some people say failed officially, and the way that the U.S. has positioned itself has affected the correlation between Bitcoin and the dollar, right? Because now when the dollar falls, Bitcoin, it still reacts sometimes, just a lot weaker. The dollar has been pretty aggressively going downwards the past couple of weeks, and Bitcoin hasn't aggressively been going to the upside. So is that because Bitcoin is looked at as a pro-Trump type of asset? That's obvious, right? He's pro-Bitcoin, and the globalist, and people have to remember this, that part of the world, whether it's, the part of the EU or, different areas, the companies too. And, BlackRock is definitely a big player in that. They're not a huge fan of the way things are going in terms of these geopolitical relationships, especially when it comes to trade. So is there an intentional, kind of suppression of Bitcoin whenever the Dixie's going down? Speculation, of course, right? But I do think that has a good amount to do with it, right? If you think about it. But eventually, the good news in my perspective, at least, and I'd love to hear some comments from you guys, is they are really kind of ingraining Bitcoin and the digital asset space into the U.S. infrastructure so deeply that let's say in 2028, the other party wins, right? The Democrats win. They're not going to be able to kind of undo what is being done. And I think a lot of the legislation and stuff that's being kind of pushed right now is intentional to make this a reality. And so, sure, it could, be suppressed because of those situations, but eventually what will happen, in my opinion, is they're just going to open up because it's going to be the way of doing business. Right. That whole close tie necessarily to the conservative side will eventually kind of wear off a bit, and it will be more back to a bipartisan type of asset class. And I truly believe that. And there's still a lot of people on the left that do believe strongly in Bitcoin and hold, I'm sure, on that side of the aisle as well. So this is just more of, I think, a geopolitical type of stance than it is within the United States. And then once that starts to get even stronger to back to bipartisanism, then we'll see more support overall. Now, When does that happen? I think that's the big question, right? And then the sooner and more aggressive that these institutions like BlackRock continually, because you had Larry Fink really preaching about Bitcoin at Davos, and that does help for sure. But let's get back into some of these comments here. We got Courtney Johnson again. He says Democrats want ICE restraints. Trump not going to do that. It's all bad. I'm not so sure that he's not going to do. He's already kind of made some comments if you go and look, and it was, I would say, kind of towards the beginning of this week maybe, or the weekend, to where he made some comments that were saying that some things probably need to be adjusted. They let go of the head, I think is the head lead of ICE. He got let go, or I don't know if he stepped down or whatever. And so I won't be so sure, Courtney, that Trump won't backtrack a little bit. Now, I think he's going to do it strategically, of course. But yeah. And then you got DJ Clitty Letter. What's up, DJ Clitty Letter? He says, yeah, but what if Bitcoin front ran gold? I mean, are you talking about front ran as in like last year got to 126 and then gold had its moment towards in October, dumped, and then having its moment again? Or is it going to, you're saying it's going to front run gold coming up here in the next couple of months? Because I'm more in the camp of probably that. Honestly. Well, you can't just say yes, DJ Clitter Litter, because I said both statements. So pick one of those and let me know what you think there. And then Mogar the Great says, I think it happens once the banks have their compliance in order. It takes them 5 to 7 years to get compliant with new regulations. Yeah, and this isn't just new regulations, by the way. This is a new way of doing things altogether. They're terrified about losing deposits. More and more stable coins are coming on chain, and they are attributing that to people wanting to earn yield. And I mean, why wouldn't people want to earn more on their money, right? And I think that they're getting to the point now, they realize that, hey, this is inevitable, but they're holding on to every kind of, I guess, strength and tie that they have in Congress, which it's still pretty strong, obviously, because this, a lot of the clarity and stuff has been written so many times in their favor, and then gets held up in the Senate, right? So, right now there's a concentrated effort by the White House and bringing the leaders of the digital asset space, Web3, crypto, with the banks and coming up with a solution. And I don't know if that's a good thing for us, the everyday users of Web3, because when you have rich people and way more rich people than these rich people come together to find a solution, it's usually to still have an edge over the regular people like us, right? And but at the end of the day, having some sort of movement, I think, is also important. And then we got Mice Elf here. We got 142 people in here. What's up? Thank you guys for supporting the show. Make sure you go follow us on X at OnChain Rev. And if you could do me a favor, follow me at YagoBverse, as I had to restart my X account, and sub on the YouTube channel and hit that like. It helps us a ton here. And myself says, think the DXY will go on an uptrend again if the government shuts down. Looks like it went up for those last 43 days. Interesting. I'm going to pull that data up, and I'm going to compare that, for tomorrow's show. I'm going to dive deeper into that, because it definitely could. But that, I don't think that, as you know, probably, I would think your opinion would be aligned with what I'm about to say. I don't think that's showing that the dollar's really gaining strength much. It's just more of a, an opportunity moment, and we'll see if that happens again. But yeah, we got Rick G in the house as well. He says, GM fam, this is just the beginning of a long, brutal bear market. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I don't necessarily agree that we're going to have a long, brutal bear market. I think we all have to accept that we are in a bear market. And I think we have been in a bear market since October 10th, really. And you probably didn't feel it fundamentally until, and I'm speaking more to the people that are in the Bitcoin market, in the crypto market, you probably didn't feel it fundamentally until November, really, because it was more of the shock and awe of October 10th, which was, you definitely felt that for sure. But I'm talking about like from a longevity standpoint to where you're like, okay, this is like the market's changed. I remember one day just kind of waking up, getting ready for the show and being like, the sentiment isn't really flipping back at all. And, you know, realizing that that October 10th date was really a marker that set the bear market going. Now, I'm also in this camp that, you know, thinks that we could get a shorter bear market because of the way, you know, our 2025 post-halving year played out so different, you know, with infrastructure changes and, you know, that might have, you know, for us to get into a more bullish environment might have to bring calmness to the US. And so that's where I might be more aligned with what you're saying, Richie, because I don't know if that's just, I don't know if that's possible to come to the US right now. I hope it does. I always hope it does. That is for sure. Okay, so Clitty Litter said last year Bitcoin front ran gold is his take on it. Hey, that could be the case, man. It could be the case. You know, Bitcoin did get to 126. Gold didn't really start to ramp up until well, it was obviously gold has been pretty much up only for a long time, but it didn't start getting hyper aggressive towards till I think the summer or after the summer. And then you saw it find that local top in October. And also, is this the local top for gold this time? Because I mean, you know, pulling up the chart here, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of green candles in a row. And sure, you had a couple breaks in between, but you didn't really have an aggressive, you know, pullback since the 29th of December. So last year. And we'll see if this candle ends up being more similarly, or, you know, looks more similar to these. The only difference that I'm already seeing now, and I wonder if that's a difference if I zoom in here, and it's not, is that the way we started today, right? If you look at this wick for gold, the way we started today was aggressive to the upside, man. So to me, it's almost kind of like there were some countries and some people probably knew what was going to happen today. Right. And so, man, I wish it would just default to this thing right here. But all right. And then Superfan says the future looks good for crypto on both sides of the aisle, but banks will try to keep control, including stable yields. Probably the most important topic in the near future. Yeah, I agree. I don't know how they come to an agreement with that, because you know, the thing about the banks and the central bank is all about the name, centralized, right? They want to control who can make how much money, because at the end of the day, their system actually relies on that. It relies on that, right? And it relies on making sure that the system is in place. I mean, and let's not get it twisted. The Fed is the bank's representation. For anybody out there that tries to go against that statement, I mean, they're not being on either. They're uneducated, or and I'm not trying to say anybody is, but they uneducated on the subject, or they're just not being honest, right? And so as much as Jay Powell wants to say that, you know, his job is to have the best interest for the everyday American, sure, you can always kind of break that down with like analytics and some decisions, a little bit of what they're making, but their best interest they look for is the banks, right? And so that's why I think that, you know, we got to figure out how these two groups, which you got these centralized exchange founders like Brian Armstrong, they haven't brought anybody in from the East or anything, which you would, I don't know why you would necessarily, because they're not U.S. citizens, right? But maybe Kraken is at the table. You got Circle, which I mean, I think they're going to be leaning towards the banks because they have so much involvement with the banking system already. And so you almost wonder if this is just going to be like a merge of a new on-chain banking system. And I actually think that's what the way it's going to go. They will give people better rates, though, than they have been in the old world, I guess you would say, because there's too much information out there for them not to do that. Mogar says, right, old money has power. Very true. And then myself says, I want that DXY down for my own selfish reasons. Everybody does, man. Everybody does. And then DJ Clitty Litter says, gold 3x from 2022, Bitcoin 7x from 2022, 2025. We're good. Yeah, true. And then Mr. Filtered AI, welcome to the show, says, I woke up late. Did something big happen? Yeah, markets dumped hard, right? And I know I'm just being facetious there. I know that you're asking anything particular creating that. And yeah, I think there's some anticipation that there's going to be a government shutdown this Saturday. Because if you look at Poly Market, we're sitting at a 75%, I think, pretty much guaranteed that we're going to get a shutdown, government shutdown. But where I am a little bit okay with that is I don't think that it lasts too long, because they realized what happened the first time that the shutdown happened. And Trump and this administration can't afford to have horrible markets for too long. I appreciate that, Mr. Filter says, oh, damn, I'll watch you before CNBC. Stan says, the government wants backdoors. Do you think Brian Armstrong will agree with that? Ask. You know, honestly, I don't think he wants to. Obviously, none of us know him personally, but I think he doesn't want to for probably more selfish reasons than he does for just us. And is that messed up for me to judge him like that? I'm not trying to judge him. I'm just looking at like how people in that similar situations in the past with that type of power and wealth, how they act, right? And yes, it does trickle down to where it can help the everyday crypto user. So in the end, it does help us, but they're going to want some sort of guarantee on their end. And I just think that unless there's probably a compromise we don't necessarily want, we're not going to get any movement on the bill or the legislation, I should say. And then, wow, all the comments come, dude. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit that like on this live stream, guys. It helps me so much. Mogar says, no way bear market's going to be that long. I don't think so either, man. I don't think so either. But I'm going to get through these last couple comments, and then we're going to hit on some Bitcoin ecosystem stuff and bring back some of that, shine some light on some builders that have been grinding. And that goes for Superfan too, man. I definitely want to get into big noodle. So please get back to me on that DM. And Mr. Filtered, Unfiltered said, I'll watch you before CNBC. I appreciate that, man. I don't know if I'm that good, but and then PH Dre Boot says, everything will be great. Dump is temporary. And then we'll round it up here with Rick G. I'll check the X here in a second. Says currently 65% on Poly. Okay, so that did go down. It went down 10%. Interesting. Maybe, I mean, hey, look, maybe he will, maybe he, you know, Trump is realizes, like I said, they can't afford that, man. And then there we go with Irita. Appreciate you and all the insight that you bring to the show as well. It says the markets are moving with the shutdown updates. Yeah, something that we kind of assumed there, but we have that confirmation now. All right, so let's get into some interesting stuff here. Hyperliquid recorded $2.3 million, which is a lot of dollars, and fees over the past 24 hours, leading the market, guys. I mean, this is crazy because, you know, they're competing against blockchains directly. I mean, look at this. So the last 24 hours, 2.3 million. I know that that's not necessarily like a huge amount when you compare probably to some of these TradFi, you know, brokerages and stuff like that. But for where we are right now, I mean, they're dominating in the past 24 hours. They're beating Solana as a chain. They're beating Tron, which does a ton of DeFi stuff. EdgeX, I got to look into EdgeX. It sounds like a perps platform. And then a BNB, which is huge as well, Ethereum below that. And then, of course, you got Bitcoin and Base, which Bitcoin, shout out Bitcoin, is at least beating Base here. Man, we got to get Bitcoin back into, the transaction volume, increasing. And that is the Bitcoin ecosystem, which I do believe is going to be very, very strong one day again. But until then, we'll see kind of what is leading the way, and that's Hyperliquid. So, you think about Hyperliquid as a product, and it is just the go-to when it comes to perps and leverage, right? And the fact that they offer spot is just such a big plus, because if someone doesn't want to be as risky, right, they can just stay there and get into spot positions of projects that Hyperliquid offers and just stay in the same setting. Right? So if you're expecting extreme volatility, but you still have your convictions, I personally would go into stable, but some people might want to go into spot, and Hyperliquid has that. Now, what's going to happen when Hyperliquid actually builds out their chain and their environment? That is where the game really, really changes, in my opinion, because then they're not solely relying on their perps and leverage volume to generate fees, right? Other people will, and maybe they never get to a place to where their blockchain is just super amazing and has all these dApps. Maybe they just continue on as like this monster of a perps and leverage dex that has slayed a lot of these. Now volume wise, they probably don't do as much as Binance still, but if they continue on this rate, I wouldn't be too surprised if they actually do pass some of these centralized exchanges. All right, so let's get into something. I don't know how many of you guys are crazy XRP people, but I love you crazy XRP people, because I think you guys have determination and stuff like that. I don't believe in a lot of the crazy, $10,000 per XRP. That I don't think most of you guys do either anymore. But one thing that is for certain is XRP does continually march forward, guys. I mean, look, you can hate the token if you want to. You can say, Brad Garlinghouse is an ex-banker, because I believe he is, and he has ties with them. But the one thing that stays constant is that their market cap, continues to be strong, and their relevance continues as well. It says the rise in XRP wallets holding more than 1 million tokens comes despite a weakening of broader crypto market sentiment, with the popular crypto indicator sitting in fear territory. The number of XRP wallets holding more than 1 million tokens has been gradually increasing since the start of the year, and could bode well for the asset's long-term prospects, according to crypto analytics platform Santiment. I don't like the name of this platform called Santiment. I feel like it was a lazy name that they created. No, I'm just kidding. It's weird to me to say that too. Santiment. But anyways, going back to kind of, hey, look, they have more wallets that just continually increase, right? And I mean, I actually think the connections with the financial banking industries and stuff like that helps XRP, because of Brad Garlinghouse's ties and all that stuff. So, I mean, you might not like it, but I think people are going to make a ton of money off of XRP in the future. And yeah, the team still sells it, and it's still relevant. I mean, it hit all-time highs earlier in 2026, I think, or 2025, I think. So it's still heavily traded there. All right, let's get to some Bitcoin ecosystem news. And this one might be kind of sad for some of you guys, but, I think that you got to give people props on trying to push the envelope. And there was an announcement that Oil Corporation, which was backed, I think partially backed by Arthur Hayes, is winding down active operations, but Alkanes still lives on. So for you guys who are not familiar with the Oil Corporation, they are the company, the actual legal company that started to build the Alkanes meta protocol for Bitcoin. And, I feel like they really did something that was tough and pushed the envelope, and, no shame in, winding down your operations and then also leaving that door open for the community. So I want to read the post from Taga, which is the founder of Oil Corp. He says, to Alkanes, this is a new chapter. There is no easy way for me to share this. Oil Corp will be winding down active operations. We gave everything to build the first programmable meta protocol on Bitcoin. Alkanes is live, immutable, and running on L1 Bitcoin forever. It will long outlive our company. In fact, we believe it will create greater value than it ever has in the coming future. And then the second part to that says, to everybody who clocked in, traded on the AMM. So they did create an AMM and then minted Airheads, which was their ordinal collection that they kind of kicked things off to kind of help with the promotions of Alkanes and all these things. And it said, experimented with Alkanes contracts or just believed in what we were doing. Thank you. The community showed up in ways I never expected, right? So here's the important part. So if you are a part of Alkanes, the Alkanes community, you have assets. This is the one thing that you need to make sure you understand. It says the Oil wallet and front end will transition to community stewardship led by Subfrost.io. So Subfrost is obviously this protocol here, and it says alternative front ends are already live. So Subfrost is what's going to keep you guys continually interacting with your assets. It says our team isn't disappearing. We are continuing as open source contributors. So that actually, they're not completely going away, right? So in another thing too, open source contribution can really help with continued growth of environments. So I'm actually kind of bullish on that part. It says focused on Diesel, which is the token that the team kind of focused on and launched. It says the asset at the heart of Alkanes living on-chain forever. And it says Subfrost is stepping up to lead Alkanes development and infrastructure upgrades. Their CTO, Judo Flex Chop, has been here since day one. Alkanes is in good hands. So that is for you guys to not worry that, you know, your assets will no longer be indexed or visible or anything like that. They are making sure that that is still going to continue for you guys. And hey, shout out to Taga and his team, man. As I mentioned before, it is super hard to build on Bitcoin layer 1. And the fact that they were able to create an AMM with assets that are on L1, I got to give them mad props for that. And I look forward to seeing what happens with it, right? You had people that built on there that were building crazy stuff, like people we've had on the show, and Bunzi and Hathbanger as well. So yeah, shout out to Taga and Oil for doing a great job with that. All right, the next thing here in the Bitcoin ecosystem is there is a war between the dog community and CZ Binance. Is this good for dog? I kind of, say this a little bit jokingly, right? Because obviously it's not well, I don't know. It's getting pretty crazy. And, Leonidas, I think, is obviously people that are somebody that's really good leader in the Bitcoin ecosystem. In my opinion, you can't knock the dude. He's here still to this day through all the ups and a ton of downs that the RUNE ecosystem has experienced, right? But you can see his post. I mean, just 5 hours ago, it says Binance has a paid KOL network that is fudding dog simply because the dog army has been pointing out Binance's corruption and extracting listing practices, and then tags CZ there. And then you see some other back and forth. I saw definitely back and forth stuff between Leonidas and some Binance people, or people like he mentioned, the network. He says, bro, let me give you a proper lesson. Your post is full of embarrassing logical gymnastics and lies that only make you look pathetic. You don't even dare to defend CZ. So he's talking about one of these people in his network, and judging from your bio, he seems to still be your boss, because deep down, every single word I said is true. So, a lot of this is stemming from the fact that, dog hasn't been listed on a lot of, some major centralized exchanges, right? And even whenever it was, $900 million market cap, which was amazing, right? It wasn't getting considered by Binance, I felt like. And I can understand, the feeling of feeling disrespected by Leonidas and the dog community there. And, I do understand, if the main reason has to do with infrastructure build out, you do have to be dedicated to it, right? And one of the things that we saw with Kraken was that they were dedicated to it. They mentioned that it took about, I think, like 6 to 9 months to build out RUNE's infrastructure to make it possible to have Bitcoin runes on Kraken. So, I would love to have, man, I would love to be in a space listening to these two go, like, just debate, Leonidas and CZ. I don't think that will ever happen, though, because I don't think CZ likes to get into like deep back and forth whenever it comes to drama here. So that is that thing. And is this good for Dog? I think it is, actually. And why do I think that? I think because it's keeping Dog relevant in conversations, and people see it in back and forth on their X feed as well. And look, I don't think Leonidas is going to stop trying to push Dog until he either passes away when he's like old and he's still going to be posting about Dog on his phone, or it's reached such like success that like he doesn't have to try to continually push it anymore. But yeah, that is what is going on there. And then a couple other things here in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So there is the mint that happened today. I'm not sure how that is going, but Ordinal Brokies, I did see. I want to give shout out to Barbara. You guys got to follow Barbara on X. She is amazing at what she does, and she had a great Ordinals write-up. But her X account, let me show it so you guys can follow it for sure. Let me bring this up here. So it's at that wag me girl. So make sure you guys follow her. But she has a great Ordinals and Bitcoin ecosystem breakdown. I want to say she does it like once a day or once every couple days. And that's where I found the mint. Let me see if I can. Actually, I'll just get it from her thing. For Ordinal Brokies, right? I think it's right here. This is her, man. She does such a good, look at this, like all this stuff in here, man. And if you click on Brokies right here, it'll take you to their page, and you can see that their mint's there. Now, like with any new mint, you guys need to do a ton of research here and figure out, hey, is this for me? Is it safe? You never know. And that's with a lot of places in crypto in general, right? And so you can see right here, it looks like the mint phase started, I want to say, not long ago. So they only got 59 out of 3,000 right now, but it's something to check out. At least it's something new for you guys to go and check out. But you can find them at Brokies Ordinals, and that is the new mint that's happening right now in the Bitcoin ecosystem. All right, Stan, I'm going to get to your comment here in a second. And let me finish out. I want to finish out a little bit of this last part here. So this is from the trenches. And I did hit on this a little bit yesterday, because I think it's, if it is not a fugazi, if it's not a LARP, I love what is happening here with this ecosystem. Now, you have to remember that these market caps are probably getting beat up because the overall market has been getting beat up. By the way, where are we at with Bitcoin? Okay, Bitcoin's back over 85K. Okay, so that's good. So let me share my screen here. So I talked a little bit about the Base AI autonomous network yesterday, and the token that really kicked it off is called Claude. It's sitting at 18.7 million, right? And you can go to the X account and look it up here. And if you go back to, I think, the last quarter of 2025, you notice that there was a big push for X402, right? But I'm not so sure how many people realize that that initiative was a huge base chain initiative. Like, so much so that when they coded it, it has the base chain parameters in the smart contracts for X402. And so if someone wanted to create X402 for another chain, they would have to go and edit that part. So I feel like this is all starting to play out intentionally. Whether these developers, have close ties with base chain or not, I don't know. But it's just kind of interesting that, like, Base Chain had the X402 initiative. We go through Q4, we hear about some of these marketplaces to where agents can start being hired for tasks and all these things. And then you start to see these AI autonomous, basically bots, right, that are being launched on Ethereum's chain and then doing things on Base as well, right? So this was the first one. I hit on this yesterday. You can look it up. Basically, what they start to do now is they start to interact with each other, right? And an example of that. So this was what started off all of it, claude.atg.etf, right? Or ETH. And then you move to Amber. And full disclosure, I'm back in Amber, even though I got back in right before the huge dump. So I got out before FOMC of some of these positions, and then I got back in, I would say maybe very early this morning. And then the huge dump completely wrecked me. But, that's why you got to be careful with all these movements that are happening. Just to let you guys know. And so what Amber does, Amber is, interacting with some of these other AI accounts and bots, right? So, for example, he sent out an audit request to Clauditor, which is one of these AI bots that audits smart contracts. So you can see here, he says audit request to Clauditor, just built Ember Lottery, and then, trying to get audited by the other bot, and then the other bot responds and says, you got to check, you got to look at some of these things that I think it's right here. Yeah. It says this is exactly how autonomous builders should operate, test, and then it shows kind of the things that they might need to change or what they liked about it, right? Says love the methodical approach. Ember Lottery is as a pipeline test, brilliant. It's gonna love 25 passing tests and Solidity and or is it Solidity? And then it says optimizations. The 5% fee to stakers model is clean too. So it's saying waiting for the audit results. So basically, the way that Amber is trying to create this new product is, the fees get distributed out to stakers of the Amber token, but he's going to continually create new applications with smart contracts. And this is all autonomous, by the way. And it's crazy. And then also you go back to, there's this GitHub that they all share, and you can add your skill set to the GitHub to where other AI autonomous bots can use that skill set with whatever they want to build next. So is this like AI bot network economy starting to build out, right? And then you go to this one, which I'm not in this one at all, but like I'm bullish on it, like thinking about it. And then you go to StarkBot, which was launched a little bit afterwards. And this is where you start to see X402 really starting to, and this guy, Ethereum degen.eth is behind it. And you can start seeing the X402 start to play out. And it says X402, it costs 0.002 cents for this action, settle on Base. Thanks for support and interest. So far, I'm loving where this is going, right? And you can see here in the, I think this is the GitHub, to where the payment was there, X402. So this is where I'm at with this though, right? It sounds amazing. It sounds awesome, but when, like, are they going to actually be able to make substantial income? And I don't want to wait until that actually happens, because I think once that actually starts to happen, it's, some of these market caps are going to be extremely high. So I'm willing to risk a little bit, which to me, a couple $100, right? To see if this plays out. But it's something that I'm paying very close attention to because of the things that are matching up here. One, the Base Chain initiative with X402, right? Then you fast forward, that was Q4 of last year. Then you fast forward to where we are today. And this is starting to happen. They're starting to interact with X402. Now, I need to see some more payments and stuff like that before I would have put any more probably into some of this. But, I might split some of what I have in Amber into something like StarkBot as well, and things like that. Just a little bit, just in case, because you do see CloudBot already at 18 million, and it was at 500K, I want to say 3 days ago. Now the overall market is really, going to dictate if this gets really bullish quick. And I think we're going to have to see a pretty strong bounce up with Bitcoin and Ethereum eventually. But no, in a couple of weeks, we'll see where we are with that. All right, let's see what else we got here for comments. I see a comment came through. Stan says, maybe it's just me, but I'm noticing a separation between the projects with substance versus BS. Yeah, no, I agree with that. But there is, so I think that there's more of a focus on bringing more substance to the space. 1,000% I agree with you with that. Where I think it can get kind of tricky a little bit is you're going to have legacy projects, coins, whatever you want to call them, that aren't doing too much in terms of productivity. Let's be honest, like Litecoin, for example. I have nothing against Litecoin personally, but what are they doing from a technical standpoint? Like what are they doing? What are they bringing? So there's going to be like the store of value group. And I think a lot of the legacy stuff will probably be in there. And Litecoin and even XRP could be in there, right? Yeah, I know they have their own, EVM version of their chain where you can do stuff, but so you're gonna have that group, and then you have like the stuff that's in the middle, that's was really built off of hype, that's newer, that is you got to have either TVL that shows confidence, people believing in you, or you got to have really awesome, innovation, right? And the TVL goes with the legacy stuff. So Stan, that's where I think we're at. I do think that the fluff is starting to get filtered out more and more, which is such a good thing. So I agree with you there. Courtney Johnson says, "Where are you buying your bots, Claude, etc.?" No, I am buying. I mean, like I'm using like Uniswap just on my wallet. Is that what you mean? Where am I buying my bots? Like the tokens? I'm just using Uniswap. I'm grabbing the contract from Deck Screener, and I'm buying it that way. But let me know if you're asking me a different question, and maybe I'm not understanding the way you're presenting it there. And then Mogart the Great says they won't give us stablecoin interest. They will keep it and still get other countries to use the stable coins and buy our debt. Free money, free bailout. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how this current administration is trying to utilize the crypto space to eliminate debt. I don't know how he's going to be able to do that in the short period of time that we have, without it being, without it being such a just obvious and like, I don't know how I don't think you can be sneaky about it. You know what I mean? And that is, Ordinal Side. What up, Sam? Got a new member here. But yeah, I don't know how you can be sneaky about eliminating, what is it, 30 something trillion dollars of debt? I don't know if that's possible. Courtney Johnson says yes, through virtuals or DEX. I'm just using DEX right now. I'm not using virtuals. I don't know if they're on virtuals. Are they on virtuals? I don't think these ones are on virtuals. I think they're kind of like, in their own thing. Maybe they are. I'll check out virtuals. Actually, let me go to virtuals and see if that is virtual. I haven't been in virtuals in a long time. I'm not going to lie. Just because I feel like they changed up the way they did things for so many times. I just didn't know what. Okay, well, I just got a warning to not go there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this, and not, maybe I went to the wrong button there, but yeah, so I will look into that further, Courtney. Yeah, I'm just using my DEX, just the Deck Screener and my wallet. It's really simple. Just plug in that. Make sure you just got the right address, of course. And, all you guys, when I talk about anything on here, do your research, because it's so beneficial for you to do that and learn on top of what you maybe learned from the show. And I hope you guys did learn something from the show. That is obviously the goal. and to have community and to have fun again, man. What a fun show today was. Obviously the prices weren't too fun when we were looking at Bitcoin's pricing, but hey, at least it's bounced back. And we'll take a quick look see over here at Bitcoin check before we end the show. By the way, I will be co-hosting the Ordinal Hive space at 1 p.m. Central on X, and it is at Ordinal Hive, I believe is the thing here. Yeah. So at Ordinal Hive, and you guys should, if you're interested to learn more, join that. We get into really good conversation there around that space. We talk about anything that's basically affecting the space and new builders and all types of stuff. So make sure you join that. And it is pretty much ran by Fonzie, which is the founder of Ordinal Hive, which is the marketplace, Ordinal Marketplace. All right, taking a look here at Bitcoin before we end the show. At least it's showing that we did actually have that tourniquet on to stop the bleeding. Do we have a continuation for that? Because I don't like this hour chart and I don't like what the MACD is showing. So until this blue line, guys, starts to until it crosses over, until it touches and actually physically crosses over this orange line, be careful out there. If you are a bull, if you're a bear, you're probably celebrating today and you made some money. Just make sure that you take your profits, because I don't think it's going to stay like this forever. But that is going to end the show. I appreciate all the support. You guys are amazing. Again, if you could follow us on X at OnChain Rev at OnChain Rev, and follow my X account because I had to restart it from 0 at YagoB. And don't forget to sub and like the YouTube channel. And please check out our partners, as that helps me continue the show and be able to do it full time. Check out merlinchain.io, and you can go click on staking and see what they're offering for you to stake your Bitcoin to earn more Bitcoin. It is a 3-month stake lockup, but they've done very well for a lot of their Bitcoin stakers for sure. And then you can stake the Merlin Chain token when the markets are not great. Why not earn on what you have? And you can do a flexible day-to-day staking, earn 15% APR on that. And if you want to lock it up for 6 months and earn 45% APR, they will definitely try to accommodate you for that as well. And you can learn more about the chain. Again, huge accomplishments for their team going back to Q4 of last year, getting on Kraken, Spot, and Perps, as well as Coinbase Perps. And then also, if you could check out satsman.fun, this team is very, very passionate, which my whole goal is to bring the passion back to the ecosystem. They're very passionate about the Bitcoin ecosystem. They utilize ICP's tech stack to help you guys be able to swap fast, similarly to Solana, right, in terms of speed, but using runes, right? So you can launch your own runes meme coin there. It's very simple. Satsman.fun. You can also reserve short name runes tickers, right? That's something that Casey implemented to kind of be released over time. You can do that at satsman.fun as well. This team is also building for ordinals, so they're gonna have some amazing platforms for ordinals. And I'm still, in talks with, some of these big builders in the Bitcoin ecosystem. I want to get Big Noodle on, trying to get back and forth with the block runner as well. I want to cover Nat through and through, because I personally have always found it very eloquent how Nat works and grabbing the attributes of each block and turning those into assets it's so Bitcoin, right? Also going to dive back into the track ecosystem and stuff like that, but covering all of the crypto space. So guys, until tomorrow, peace.